Welcome to the Practice You podcast. My name is Elena Brower. Let's dive into today's conversation regarding life's myriad transitions and how we refine our responses in our relationships, our wellness, our households, our work, and in our practices. You are invited to learn and love and listen with me. Welcome to Practice You. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a dear friend, Mara Branscombe, with me today. She is the author of 2 books. She is a force in this world. She is a kind, beautiful human. And dear listener, I think you're going to fall in love with her. She's a yoga and meditation teacher. She's a writer, a mother, an artist, a ceremonialist, a spirit mentor who finds great joy in leading others along the path of self-transformation. She's passionate about weaving the art of mindfulness, self-care, mind-body practices, earth-based rituals into her offerings. She's a regular contributor to many of the publications that you most likely read. She is the author of Ritual as Remedy, which I'm holding in my hand right here, and one listener is going to have the wonderful treat of receiving both of her books from my home. She's also the author, more recently, of Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen. She lives in both Vancouver, Canada, and in a cabin in the woods with her 2 daughters and her husband. Her website is marabranscombe.com, marabranscombe.com if you want to look it up now and you don't want to wait while you're listening. Welcome to the podcast, Mara.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a real sweet treat to have you. I want to talk a little bit about the Ritual as Remedy first, I think, since that was earlier and really my first sort of introduction to you. And then we'll talk about the more recent book. We all know ritual matters. I have discovered for myself that even the smallest, seemingly inconsequential rituals help me feel free and untangled and present for myself and for my life. Most of my ritual involves the lighting of incense and sitting down for meditation. Pretty simple stuff, pulling a card before I start work so that I can have some kind of an orientation to what I want to do. Those are the ways in which I approach my days, with a little bit of ritual. And I would love to talk to you about why ritual matters to you and how specifically, because this is something you work with in Ritual as Remedy, how one can work with the 5 elements to, as you say, steady oneself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing how you weave ritual into your daily life. And that was really the strong whisper to, in fact, write this book, Ritual as Remedy, is from all the work over all the years and all the practices and the meditations, the yoga, the rituals, I discovered that it's about weaving the rituals into the daily life practice that really matter most. How do you steady oneself through the daily process? And so for me, a ritual is anything that's done with intention. And, through the writing process, what I discovered was that I needed to wake very early. Also, as a mother of 2 young daughters, that I needed to wake really early to begin my morning ritual. And it was so simple. It started with lighting a candle, calling forward sacred space, dropping into gratitude, body, and then visualizing the day as I envisioned it to unfold. And so when we can do even simple rituals like that, could take 5 minutes every morning. I really want to inspire everyone to begin now with putting the phone and the devices away in another room, in fact. So how you wake up matters. How you go to bed matters. We really are at a precipice in this wildly distracted world to how do we engage with ritual in a way that awakens presence, that allows us to drop into our heart space, real time, and allows us to actually hear the intuitive whispers that want to come through.
Yeah, and it takes time. And perhaps our listener, like you, is the mother of a young person, or even a toddler or baby. This waking up early was critical for me when Jonah was a lot younger, and I would make sure that I had at least an hour to myself before I knew that he would be roused, and just take care of myself and my mind and my space and my body and do whatever I could to just get back to myself before all of my attention was turned toward him.
Yes.
Very, very good.
And also I wanted to share upon, because you asked also around elemental wisdom. And if I may share a little with that, because what it sparked when you were talking about also, whether you're mothering or not, life is busy, it's full, it can be quite chaotic. And so what are the moments throughout the day where you can replenish and you can invite in prana, life force, energy from nature? And even if you're, in New York City in a high rise, you can look out the window, you can connect to the sky, you can take a moment to visualize spaciousness. And that's the element of air. So very simply, the element of air, the sky, can awaken an energy of less chaos, more spaciousness. And when we connect to the element of earth, we're on a nature walk, we can source and merge with the abundance of Mother Earth. And we can go to the waters, lakes, rivers, oceans, streams, and we can allow ourselves to simply release what no longer serves. Even visualizing that right now, what no longer serves you in this moment, in your mind, in your body, can you exhale it out? And that's the power that the element of fire brings us, the power of the sun, transformation. And in that moment, there is a rekindling perhaps of your true nature, which then leads us to the element of ether, which is the spiritual element, a very sacred element, the fifth element of mystery, of mystical energy, of the unknown. And when we can welcome that unknown in and be steady and okay with it, we're more likely to expand out of personal ego and narrative, and more likely to drop into present moment awareness.
Mm. The book itself, for our listener, has multitudes of practices. Really, the text is embodied practices for soul care. So if this resonates with you, when I first started hearing work like this, I was like it was a little esoteric for me. It was a little distant from me. But if I take one question at a time, like what is no longer serving me right now? Well, this little niggling doubt that I have that I should be doing the job that I'm doing right now, that no longer serves me for today. I can just put it aside for today. It doesn't need to be forever. I don't need to be permanently healed, but this is something that I can do. The smallest aspects, our listener, of your experience matter. And so I think Ritual is Remedied is one of those books that can stay close to your desk or close to your bed and just continuously serve. So at the end of our talk today, I want to move on to the newer book because I feel like it's very important. It's been important for me. And at the end of the episode, I'll present the opportunity to win both of these books with me, which I love to do. I have so many beautiful books, and once I've taken all the notes and put all the Post-its in, highlighted, dog-eared, it's fun to send them to a listener who would really enjoy it.
That is so special. That is so special.
No, it's the best. The best. And I usually get, although in your case it's not true, they're usually galley copies, but these are actual copies. Okay, the most recent book is called Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen. Access your power and creativity through sacred female archetypes. I love this. I interviewed, episode 117 was with Kimberly Ann Johnson, who's a dear friend and a hero of mine, and she is the author of Call of the Wild. I think she really was one who brought this conversation to the forefront in the recent years, and I'm happy to have read her book prior to reading this because it gave me kind of a window open. Here's the back of the book. Journey through the archetypal wisdom of the divine feminine. Journey Through the Archetypal Wisdom of the Divine Feminine. I really want us to hear these words, our listener. These words are bandied about. I want us to hear what they actually mean. The archetypal wisdom of the divine feminine is the most important cultivation that we can entertain as a woman. We do this to reclaim your authentic self and to follow your soul's longing. Embodiment teacher Mara Branscombe takes an intriguing look at the 7 feminine archetypes that prevail in the modern psyche. We go from maiden to mother to sage to huntress, lover, mystic, and queen. You trace their continuing influence through the different stages of our lives, sometimes dormant, sometimes prominent, and you explore each archetype's beneficial qualities, connections to the physical, emotional, mental body, and its shadow aspects. Can you sort of give us a gloss on maiden to mother? Because I think that our listener, I look at my demographic quite a bit, and this demographic is partially maiden and partially mother, but easing towards sage. And I want to give, sort of proper airtime to every single one of these archetypes, but I want to sort of gloss through maiden and mother because I feel like they're way stations in some funny way. I hope that perhaps if I need to be corrected, I stand corrected.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward and for reading the back of the book. What I just want to put forward, Elena, right from the top is that my belief and my feeling, my intention upon writing this, and it came through really fast. This book is actually a response, I believe now, and I just came to that recently. It was a response to Ritual as Remedy. Because I didn't stop writing. I kept going because I missed it. I finished the book and then I missed writing as a creative process. So I went back in and then I discovered what wanted to come through was this book. And we can access all of the archetypes at any time in our life. And they are developmental, yes. And also what I'm bringing forward is that we hold all of them. We hold all of these codes. We hold all of these formulas. So archetypes are not stereotypes. As we may think, or as we may kind of assume at times in our life. But really what I'm presenting is that they're codes, they're formulas, they're patterns, both in their true power and in their shadow essence. And so with the maiden, very much connected to youthful energy, that zest, that zhuzh for life, that adventurous soul. And, the shadow aspect of the maiden is naivete and being naive, perhaps even to the point where there's maybe subtle manipulation. And I believe we can really empower the maiden spirit even as we age, as we come into our elder years even, we can reclaim the maiden in a way that is pure sovereignty, adventurous sovereignty through the female lens.
It's funny, I feel that even now, when I look back at my 20, 30-year-old self and how frivolous and reckless, also disrespectful of herself she was. I don't look at that time with disdain. I look at it with great empathy and care. And now I feel like, I can take that sort of energy of exploration and adventure and bring it into how I feel now about my life, this much more steady, caring, loving friend of myself that I am.
That's so beautiful. I feel the same way in all my recklessness of my youth and the wild. And as I come to my 50th year this year on this planet, I am really starting to explore how the maiden holds this true essence of pure innocence, the kind of pure innocence that is like source energy, like the source that lives in the stars or the microbes in the earth. And to allow that to live without holding anything back. And layering that with the mother. And, I want the listener to know that the mother archetype, I put a big focus on mothering of self, or mothering of children, sure, or mothering of projects. But it's really about honoring the mothering of self and perhaps healing the ancestral trauma or wound that may be there, known or unknown, and about igniting the life force of Mother Earth, of the earth's abundance and resilience and resourcefulness into one's body-mind essence. And then we layer that with the sage. And the sage is the elder that lives within us. And the sage holds the capacity to sit daily in the meditative practice or the soul care practice or the nature-infused practice, whatever your practice is. And it's as if that elder is before you. And so I'd even encourage the listeners to, can you start to merge and embody who you are as an elder and allow them to start to speak to you? And perhaps that may stoke the intuitive process as well and release the place of indecision or lack or comparison or judgment of self or others.
It's interesting, the allowance of the elder to kind of come through and bring the wisdom forward. It's really hard for women in this time. It's so scary. It's so, I'm like just moving closer and closer to death and aging and wrinkles and the loss of my beauty and whatever the sort of narrative might be. I think I'm finally getting through that altogether. And every time I look in the mirror now, I'm just like, yep, there you are, beautiful elder. I see you. And it took some time. It took some time to do this.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the daily practice for me anyway. When I feel centric in myself, when I'm in my center and I feed my center with all the good stuff, I'm much more accepting of this journey and this aging journey. And I'm less likely, I feel anyway, I'm more awake to the paradigms in which I'm feeding, be it martyr consciousness, victim consciousness. And this is where the shadow work comes in. And I think really why I wrote the book was to support us in this shadow journey. So if I know I don't want to be feeding the patriarchal systems, the systems of oppression, where am I catching myself when I am feeding those paradigms? And that's quite liberating to come to personally, to understand, am I feeding a system that I don't want to be a part of? And how do I reroute and empower self?
Which is precisely what kind of leads toward Sage Huntress. I wonder if you could explore and elaborate on the difference between the two and what that transition is like in your eyes.
Well, the sage, as we are sitting with our elder self, and if folks don't like the word elder, your wise self, your intuitive self. The huntress comes forward. She's like love in action, or they are like love in action, that passion, that fire of the warrior that some of us are born with more naturally than others. I've had many say, I avoid the huntress, I avoid the warrior energy. I'm much more of the maiden, or I'm much more of this. It's so interesting. The huntress, however, holds this steady spark that keeps one connected to their creative process, to their expression out in the world, to keeping them connected to the causes that they believe in. The active revolutionary inside is the huntress. And yet the shadow of the huntress is the hardening, the over-identifying with the masculine. And this is really a big inquiry for me because I love to get things done. And I've always been that way. And my Virgo nature comes forward strong. And the learning that I've received is, where's the softening with the huntress so that they may go forward and not burn out, but really take care and continue to build their body of work.
It's interesting. I'm right there. I can feel and have felt, I'm now almost 53, and I can feel from the start of COVID, I guess, 49, this shift into what I feel like if COVID hadn't happened, I would have been a lot more in the shadow side of the huntress. And because it did happen, and I did have the means to move to a quieter place, which scared me, but ultimately was the best thing for me, there was a softening that happened. I think this is important to bring out for women that, mid-menopause, perimenopause into menopause, it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to get harder, and you're going to feel like you have to accomplish more. You're going to feel like you have something to prove. You're going to feel like you have to show up in certain ways for certain things, or you're going to see all of that happening in the sort of, background of your consciousness. And you might actually make a choice to say, I get that, and I'm going to use the energy of that to get things done, to whatever, write the book, whatever it is that you're doing, have the kid, raise the kid. And I'm going to soften, consciously soften, so that even when people are hard with me, I am going to soften. I'm going to come with that ease. It is a choice that we have to make. In the ideal energy of the Huntress, what I'm gathering, pun intended, is that we have to make that choice or risk getting hard and having edges that we don't intend to have.
Yes, this is what I feel, what you just described, the embodied energy of the feminine. That there is this softening into strength and strengthening into softness, that there's this duality, which also presents paradoxes, and it can get really interesting if you go there, if you can be curious enough to break, if you will, reroute, come away from certain patterns. I've supported many, many women on this journey through this, and this unconscious acting out of patterning, whether it be ancestral or cultural or karmic, but to awaken to that. And as you said, to be able to make a choice. And it takes work, and it takes a daily practice. And it doesn't have to be this massive life change, as you said, but it's like the daily work that starts to build and has momentum. And it can keep us steady through these challenging years that may be coming towards us.
That are definitely coming. Yeah, and we have to be so steady, to use your word, within ourselves in order to weather these, very turbulent times.
Mm-hmm. And we have to be willing to look at the shadow, the deeper shadow. And I know that word's overused, and shadow self or inner child or, all this stuff, but really to understand why you're saying what you're saying, why you're doing what you're doing, for the sake of what, and to contemplate that, really. And then that's the beauty of the meditation practice, as you know, is to get so quiet that we are presented, or I am anyway. My process has been, I've been presented with all these narratives that are kind of wanting to play out if I choose to allow it to play out. And the work of understanding these shadow aspects is that we access a deeper sense of compassion towards self, and even more amazingly, towards others. So I can see, for example, where my partner is acting out a mother shadow wound. And I can have compassion for that, and I don't have to go and fix it. I don't have to take great action, but I can know, and I can hold him away energetically and understand why.
Will you teach me about that? That's so beautiful. Like when you see somebody you love, not specifically partner, but when you see somebody you love acting out in some way that is reflective of a wound that you're aware of, what do you do? I'm asking, what do you personally do?
Mm-hmm. Well, personally, I attempt to breathe, soften, not react right away or not respond. So that classic, just wait a day or wait 24 hours, in an email or a phone call. And if it's in present moment, just softening into, this could be the messaging is, this isn't about me. What's happening before me, this reaction that's happening from this other person towards me, maybe this isn't about me. this is perhaps about the narrative that's playing out in them. The classic, don't take it personally, but it's a high level practice. I mean, I'm not there, and I aspire to be there, especially with my children and my daughters and my 9-year-old and my 12-year-old. It's getting wild in my house right now. And it is, and the hormones are so strong. They're coming forward and breathing, big tall glass of water, a moment outside, just a breath of fresh air. Walking out of
and it's really not personal.
Walking out of the room for a moment. And then say, okay, what is the highest goodness in me right now? I ask myself, that's in the book somewhere, is it to have this affirmation, what is the highest goodness in me? How can I hold that energy? That's stronger than anything else.
From the perspective of nonviolent communication, this is where you put your hand on your heart and just have empathy for yourself. Mm. At least in Judith Lassiter's teaching, how human of me to feel confronted right now. And I can tell you from the bird's eye view, now that my son is 17, I can name specific events, months of the year, where I was confronted with such a visceral feeling of being offended. And I didn't respond. I just sat and had empathy for myself and reminded myself of how human it is to feel hurt right now and how it's not actually about me. It's just about him having a hard day. Do anything that I can do to ease that, but also let him keep his boundary and be self-sufficient and independent. I can name those events, and I can tell you from the perspective of now, those things don't happen anymore because I let him go through his process. I didn't make each one of these sort of quote-unquote affronts into a big event. I let them be what they were, which was a surge in hormones, emotions, difficulty on his part, things I would never otherwise know about because they happen at school and out of my purview. And to let them go gave him a trust in me that I would always show up in the same way, steady, listening, supportive. And now he feels that. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That is the high-level work that I am embodying at that time. So I will tuck that into my heart right now.
And tuck it in, sister.
Tuck it in and be in practice.
Yes,
it's a practice.
Totally. Totally. From sage, we go to lover. And to mystic and queen, I would like to know what this whole archetypal route looks like in your mind, in your heart, in your experience.
The lover is about high-level self-love. It's about embodying that. And as you spoke about, when you look yourself in the mirror and you say, yeah, good morning, hello, I love you. And that is also a daily practice, as we know. It was interesting for me to write this chapter. I actually bypassed it and wrote the mystic first. So this is interesting, actually, because I had some sort of, I don't know if I can write about that right now. Or, obviously there was a healing in me that happened by writing that chapter. So when I wrote the mystic first, and the mystic allowed me to write the lover, because the mystic holds that kind of star energy, planetary connection, a desire actually to stargaze, the desire to be in the mysterious and mystical realms. And that allowed me to remember or to feel or to embody, to then be able to express that the lover comes from that source. The lover comes from that deep source of self-love. And then from that, one gets to make the rules as to what they do with the lover. Be sexy for you, be erotic for you. It's not about partnering in this archetypal energy that I brought forward. That was my download. It's not about who you are in a relationship. It's about who you are in relationship to yourself first. And what's interesting is the shadow that came forward of the lover is very much around drama and chaos and how you might thrive off that. And how when we start to remedy that we don't need that fix of the drama and the chaos anymore. Then what? And then perhaps things become more steady again, anchored in center, and love is true compassion.
Dude, I think I'm headed in that direction. That feels really true to me. That feels really true to me.
And then we bring forward the queen, who I shared this with you because the first time I met you, Elena, I was quite struck by your capacity, by your energy, by your ability to be in your center and have many roles of leadership and love in action. And I felt like, yeah, the queen is Elena. And you hold the queen's energy to me. And I'm not talking about colonial queen at all here. I'm not talking about the queen in her castle at all. I'm talking about one's capacity to lead with love, with a true sense of leadership, with authenticity, with honesty, with clear action. And that, from first meeting you and then getting to know you a bit and doing some of your work, that's always how I felt from you. And so that's a true inspiration you are. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I feel thankful for that reflection, and also like I'm going to spend the rest of my life making mistakes and trying to live into it.
And not being afraid to make mistakes. And so that's a common theme in this book, because I'm such a, believer in that. I've made many mistakes in my life, and the queen also has this, her shadow is in perfectionism, right? And so I see a lot of women who have this great capacity, yet their perfectionist tendencies hold them back from putting their incredible work out into the world. And this is the message I want to share. Share your work, share your art, share your voice with the world. We are ready for it.
Thank you for that. It's so nice to hear. I hope our listener is appreciating it as much as I am. Just this conversation is so supportive and so nourishing. To just talk about this and feel into, the original ideas of what this is all about. This human life. I appreciate also the distinction between colonial queen and every other conception of queen. Like, we're not talking about a queen who rules or lords or forces. It's just...
Absolutely. And I described that clearly, and I almost didn't use the word queen. And then I went deep into it, and I said, no, I'm going to liberate this energy. I want to liberate this energy. I want to create this energy to be sovereign. And I think I use the word sovereign queen quite a lot in that chapter. And if I may go one step further, which is when I came to finishing the book, I had this strong vision of the weaver. And the weaver is the one, the energy, the archetype, the pattern, the codes, who holds all of the archetypes. It's like a woven kind of ball, globe, orb, energy, web, and it lives at the center of the body. And the invitation is that by being centric inside your body, having this centric consciousness, you can have the weaver there. And I visualize this often in my meditations. And the weaver has each archetype in its full essence, in all of its lessons, in all of the shadow. So that whatever's going on in my life, when I'm in the heat of the conversation, with my daughter in her wild hormones, I'm like, okay, how can I hold space? What is required in this moment? Okay, I can pull forward. I can pull forward the lover right now. I can pull forward the lover and just let myself be bathed in love. And in a way, bathe my daughter in love without having to use any words or any actions. So I'm still in that listening space. And so these are the codes that surprisingly came forward for me in this creative writing process. And I find them to be very supportive.
And I really feel also that the considerations that you've just spoken about, the ways of seeing that we are sort of reviewing here, it's not something so far away from any of us. And even if our listener, even if you've never considered any of these archetypes before, and it feels like, no, I have to pay the mortgage, I have to pay my car payment and my insurance, I cannot consider this right now. This sounds like a bunch of woo-woo. The truth is, in the tiniest little tiny moments, the private moments where nobody's watching, I have a choice to treat myself with care or with carelessness, to move with mindfulness or mindlessness. And maybe, just maybe, this consideration and listening to this a couple of times might spur you toward a little more care and this sort of friendship with yourself that maybe hasn't been in your consideration yet. At least that's what I hope.
Yes, that is the work right there. It's the tiny moments. It's the quiet moments. It's that download of, wow, if I continue to say that thought in my mind, that negative thought or that limiting thought, that's going to become my reality. And what if I take that thought just for the next minute and let it leave my body? Then what comes through? Space, energy, a more expansive frequency. That's what comes through in that moment.
Yeah, I see that. I'm so grateful for your time, for your writing. I know it takes a lot to write a book, and you've written two. I want to present our listener with the opportunity to get these books from me to you, signed with a little love note from me, not signed by Mara, but signed from me. I'd love to say, as I do at the end of most of my episodes now, that if you would like, leave a comment for the podcast, maybe on this episode, maybe something more general. Email me, info@elenabrower.com. I'm the only person who reads it. Let me know that you've left a comment, and you might receive one or both of these books. I would love to share them with you. And they have my notes and my little Post-its on the sides, which is fun, so I know where I am going in the conversations. Anything else that we haven't touched on, and I'll close with your website and how our listener can find you, of course.
I think we've covered some great ground here today, Elena, and, just holding this, empowering this feminine spirit that is the original. Let's call that the original spirit to revive itself, to support others in their healing and the world in its healing at this time. May the work ripple far and wide.
Thank you so much. Your website is your name, MARA, BRANSCOMBE. It is in the notes under this episode, wherever you're listening. You have my respect, sister, and my gratitude for your time today. Thank you so much for enriching this landscape here.
Thank you for having me. It's been such an honor to sit in conversation with you.
Thank you.